Welcome to Lecture 11 for Old Testament Historical Books. This lecture will cover Part 2 of Israel under Divided Rule. Letter C. Elisha performs various miracles. Number 1. Elisha causes a widow's oil to multiply. One of the sons of the prophet died, and since he left his widow and children with a debt they could not pay, the creditor was going to make her two children his slaves, since all she had was one jar of oil. So she asked Elisha to please intervene. Elisha told her to go borrow vessels from her neighbors and fill each one of them with the jar of oil and sell them to pay for her debt. Secondly, Elisha causes a Shunammite woman to conceive. There was a wealthy woman who would always feed Elisha when he was in town, and one day she even convinced her husband to build him a room on their roof since he was a holy man of God. So Elisha asked his servant Gehazi what he could do for her, and Gehazi informed Elisha that she could not conceive a child since her husband was very old. Elisha then told Gehazi, bring the Shunammite woman to him, and he told her that this time next year she would embrace her son. Then the woman conceived and bare a son the following spring, just as Elisha had said she would. Thirdly, Elisha raises the Shunammite woman's son from the dead. When the miracle child grew older, he met his father in his fields one day complaining about a headache, and when he was taken back to his mother, he died in her lap. His mother then took him into Elisha's room where she laid him in his bed, and then quickly traveled to Mount Carmel to see Elisha. When she got to Elisha, she told him and Gehazi that all was well. But Elisha realized something was wrong that the Lord had not revealed to him. So she bitterly explained that her son had died. Elisha sent Gehazi ahead of them as fast as he could with his staff to lay it on the child and raise him from the dead. But it did not work. So Elisha went into the room, put his face and hands on the boy's face and hands, and then the boy sneezed 7 times and came back to life. Number 4, Elisha heals a deadly stew and multiplies bread. Elisha traveled to Gilgal during a famine in the land, and one of the sons of the prophets was gathering herbs and accidentally found a poisonous vine, placed it in the stew, and served it to all the other sons of the prophets. When one of the sons of the prophets realized it, he cried out to Elisha, and Elisha said to put flour in the pot, give it to the men, and they were not harmed. Later, a man came bringing 20 loaves of bread and some fresh ears of grain, and Elisha told him to give it to the men so they could eat. The man said that 20 loaves were nothing for 100 men, but Elisha said to feed them, and they would eat and have enough left over, which they did. Letter D. Elisha heals Naaman of leprosy. Number 1. Naaman learns of a healing prophet in Israel. Naaman was a great commander of Syria's army who the Lord used to give Syria victory over their enemies. But he was a leper. During one of Syria's raids, they took an Israeli girl who ended up serving Naaman's wife, and she told them that there was a prophet in Israel who could heal him of his leprosy. So Naaman took a letter from the king of Syria to the king of Israel with gold, silver, and 10 changes of clothes. Secondly, Elisha tells Naaman to wash in the Jordan River 7 times. When Naaman arrived with the letter asking for the king of Israel to heal him of his leprosy, Jehoram thought it was his way of picking a fight with Israel, so he tore his clothes. When Elisha heard that the king tore his clothes, he sent to the king saying Naaman should come to him. And when he did, Elisha sent a messenger to him saying to wash in the Jordan 7 times, and then he would be cleansed. This angered Naaman because there was much better rivers in Syria. But he went anyway, and he was cleansed of his leprosy. However, number 3, Gehazi becomes a leper. After Naaman was healed of his leprosy, he wanted to give Elisha gifts, but Elisha refused and sent them away in peace. However, Gehazi, the servant of Elisha, got greedy, so he chased down Naaman's caravan and lied, saying that he needed money and 2 changes of clothes for 2 sons of the prophets who came to visit Elisha. After Naaman gladly gave him the rewards, Gehazi came back and lied to Elisha about leaving. But Elisha knew where he had been and what he had done. So he cursed him with the leprosy of Naaman on him and his descendants. And he went out from his presence a leper like snow. Letter E. Syria wars against Israel. Number 1. Elisha causes an axe head to float. The place where the sons of the prophet were staying with Elisha was too small, so they decided to go to the Jordan to cut down trees to make a place large enough for them all to stay. But in the process, one of the axe heads fell into the water, and the one using it cried out to Elisha because it was a borrowed axe. Elisha asked them to show him where it fell. He cut off a stick, threw it into the water, and the iron axe head floated to the top so that the man could reach out and grab it. Secondly, the king of Syria attempts to capture Elisha. Letter A. Elisha protects the king of Israel. While making war with Israel, the king of Syria would constantly move his camp, and Elisha would tell the king where he was and not to go there. This made the king of Syria believe that someone in his camp was a traitor, but it was revealed to them that it was on account of Elisha the prophet, who was residing in Dothan at the time. Letter B. The Lord protects Elisha. In response to this news, the king of Syria sent horses, chariots, and a great army to capture Elisha. When they arrived, the sons of the prophets were scared. So Elisha prayed that the Lord would open their eyes to the greater number for them than against. Then they saw the mountain full of horses and chariots of fire all around Elisha. The Syrians then advanced on Elisha, so he prayed that the Lord would strike them with blindness, which he did, and then Elisha led them to Samaria. Letter C. Elisha protects the Syrians. When they got to Samaria, Elisha prayed that the Lord would restore their eyesight. And then the king of Israel asked if he should strike them down. Elisha replied that you should never kill anyone who had been taken captive, and instead they should be fed and sent away back to their master. This actually caused the Syrians to no longer come on raids into the land of Israel. Number 3. Syria besieges Samaria and causes a famine. After all this, Ben-Hadad brought his entire army, besieging Samaria, and caused a famine so bad that even the price of a donkey's head and dove's dung was astronomically expensive. One day, while walking by the wall of the palace, a mother cried out to King Jehoram for help. She and another mother made a promise to kill and cook their own sons in order for them to survive. But even after the one woman boiled and ate her son, the other mother refused to do so with her own. Upon hearing this, it grieved the king of Israel's heart, so he tore his clothes and swore that either Elisha would die or he would. So he dispatched his right hand man to find and kill Elisha. Number 4, Elisha promises an abundance of food for Samaria. When the man dispatched to kill Elisha arrived, he had the elders barricade the door and told him that tomorrow, about that time, the price of flour and barley would be extremely inexpensive. However, that man would see it happen, but not be able to eat of it. Number 5, the Lord frightens the Syrians. There were 4 lepers who lived by the gate of Samaria, and they reasoned that if they stayed there, they would die. And if they went into Samaria, they would die. So they decided to see if they would be shown mercy by the Syrians, since, after all, the worst that could happen is they die. So they went down to the Syrian camp and found it completely abandoned because the Lord caused the army to hear what they thought was the Hittites and the Egyptians coming to attack them as allies of Israel. Number 6, Israel raids the Syrian camps. The 4 lepers then went into the camp to eat and drink, and then they took silver, gold, and clothing and hid them. But they realized that what they were doing was not right. So they went back to Samaria and informed the men at the gate that the Syrians had fled. The king thought it was a setup, so he only sent a small group to investigate. And when they returned with the report that the Syrians had truly fled, the king sent the people to plunder the Syrian camp to the point that flour and barley were extremely inexpensive. However, the man that was dispatched to kill Elisha only heard of it because that information caused a stampede at the gate and he was trampled on and died. Letter F. Jehoram reigns as king of Judah. Number 1, Elisha warns the Shunammite woman of a coming famine. Elisha warned the same woman whose womb he blessed and son he raised from the dead that she needed to go to another country because there would be a famine in the land for 7 years. She obeyed Elisha with all her household and stayed in the land of the Philistines for 7 years. And when she returned, she had to entreat the king of Israel in order for her to receive her land back. As providence would have it, the king was talking to Gehazi, the servant of Elisha, about all the miracles Elisha had performed, and when he told the king about raising a boy from the dead, the Shunammite woman entered the hall, so the king restored all that was hers with all the produce as it was the day she left. Secondly, Elisha tells Hazael that Ben-Hadad will die. While Elisha was in Damascus, Ben-Hadad got sick, so he sent Hazael to ask the man of God if he was going to recover from his sickness. When he arrived, Elisha told him that he would recover, but he would still die. Elisha then began to weep because he told Hazael that he knew the evil that he would do to his people. This confused Hazael, so Elisha told him that it was on account of the fact that he would be the next king of Syria. When Hazael returned back to Ben-Hadad, he informed him that Elisha said he would recover. Then he took a wet cloth and held it over his face until he died, making him the next king of Syria. Thirdly, Jehoshaphat dies. During the 5th year of Jehoram, the son of Ahab, king of Israel, Jehoshaphat died. He began his reign when he was 35 and reigned for 25 years over Judah. He did that which was right in the sight of the Lord, except for not taking away the high places. So the people did not set their hearts on the Lord. Fourthly, Jehoram assassinates his brothers. Jehoram was 32 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned for 8 years in Jerusalem. But he walked in the ways of Ahab and even married one of Ahab's daughters. He also went as far as to kill all his brothers with the sword, and even some of the princes of Israel. Despite all of this, the Lord did not destroy the house of David because of the covenant he made with him. Fifthly, Elijah writes Jehoram a letter. Jehoram was promoting idolatry all throughout the land of Judah, so a letter from Elijah the prophet came to him, declaring that since he had not walked in the ways of his father Jehoshaphat, but instead, like the kings of Israel, and even killed his own brothers, the Lord was going to send a plague on his people, his family, and even himself. But the question is, how did Elijah write Jehoram a letter if he had already been translated to heaven? This means that either the timeline is off for this story chronologically, or Elijah wrote the letter before he went to heaven and it was delivered during this time. Sixthly, the Philistines and Arabians kidnapped Jehoram's family. Because of all Jehoram had done in Judah, the Lord sent the Philistines and Arabians to invade Judah, take possessions from the king's house, and even take the king's sons and wives, all except Jehoahaz, also known as Ahaziah, the youngest son. Seventhly, Jehoram dies from a stomach disease. After all this, the Lord gave Jehoram an incurable disease in his stomach that, after 2 years of agony, caused his bowels to come out of his body, and he died. However, no one mourned him or regretted his death, even to the point that they buried him in the city of David, but not in the tomb of the kings. Eighthly, Ahaziah, also known as Jehoahaz, reigns in Judah. Ahaziah was 22 years old when he began to reign, and he only reigned for 1 year. His mother was Athaliah, granddaughter of Omri, the king of Israel, and he did evil in the sight of the Lord like Ahab had done. And ninthly, Ahaziah, king of Judah, and Jehoram, king of Israel, war against Hazael, the king of Syria. During the battle, Jehoram was wounded, and it led to a sickness which caused Ahaziah to travel to Samaria to see him, which we will find out will be something that comes back to haunt Ahaziah. Letter G. Jehu reigns as king of Israel. Number 1. Elisha has Jehu anointed as king of Israel. Elisha had one of the sons of the prophets go from Ramoth Gilead, where Commander Jehu was, took him privately into a room, anointed him with oil, and declared him to be the next king of Israel. Then he informed him of his duty to cut off every male from the house of Ahab. Secondly, Jehu's servants declare him the king of Israel. When he came out of the room, the servants asked him what Elisha said, and when he informed them, they blew the trumpet and proclaimed, Jehu is king. Thirdly, Jehu assassinates Jehoram, king of Israel. After being proclaimed king by his servants, Jehu conspired against Jehoram and led him out of the palace into an ambush with Ahaziah, king of Judah. He then was shot with a bow, causing him to die, and be buried in the land of Naboth as repayment for what his father Ahab had done. Fourthly, Jehu assassinates Ahaziah, king of Judah. Not only did Jehu kill Jehoram, but he also killed Ahaziah and all his brothers' sons while they were fleeing from the battle against Jehoram. This left a huge void on who would fill the throne of Judah, so Athaliah, which was Ahaziah's mother, became the queen. Fifthly, Jehu assassinates Jezebel. When Jehu arrived at the palace, Jezebel made herself pretty and asked if he came in peace. But Jehu had 2 to 3 of the eunuchs attending to her throw her out the window to her death. He then left her lying dead in the street, and when he sent men to bury her, all that remained were bones because she had been eaten by dogs. Sixthly, Jehu assassinates Ahab's 70 sons. Jehu started by writing letters and sending them to all the city rulers, challenging them to war against him with Ahab's sons. But they were afraid of Jehu since he killed Jehoram and Ahaziah, so they sent letters back saying that they were servants of Jehu and would do whatever he said. This caused Jehu to write a second letter to the city rulers, telling them to kill all 70 of Ahab's sons. They ended up doing this, and then they brought all 70 of their heads to Jehu, and Jehu had them placed in 2 piles on each side of the gates of the city, with the proclamation that he would accomplish all that the Lord said would happen to Ahab's house through the prophet Elijah. However, the Lord will eventually condemn him later of these acts many years later in Hosea 1, verse 4. Seventhly, Jehu assassinates Ahaziah's 42 relatives. When he went out of Samaria, 42 relatives of Ahaz met him, and when he found out who they were, he killed every one of them. Eighthly, Jehu assassinates the worshippers of Baal. After teaming up with Jehonadab the Rechabite, Jehu tricked the prophets of Baal into thinking he would worship with them. So they assembled all the followers of Baal for a feast, and then he sent 80 men into the building and killed every single person who came to worship Baal, including destroying the house of Baal with fire. The only flaw in Jehu's plan to wipe out idolatry was that he only focused on Baal and left the golden calves, and he still did not walk in the law of the Lord with all his heart. And finally, number 9, Jehu dies. After the Lord used Hazael to defeat Israel in much of their territory, and 28 years after Jehu began to reign, he died, and his son Jehoahaz took his place as the king of Israel. Next, letter H. Athaliah's reign as queen of Judah ends. Number 1. Jehoshaphat, also known as Jehoshabeath, hides Joash from the queen. When Athaliah took the throne, she had the entire royal family killed. But Jehoshaphat, the daughter of King Jehoram of Judah, sister of Ahaziah, and wife of Jehoiada the priest, hid Joash for 6 years in the temple while she reigned. Secondly, Jehoiada makes Joash, also known as Jehoash, king of Judah at 7 years old. Jehoiada had some guards come to the temple, swear an oath to him, and then revealed that there was still a royal son, Joash. He then had them carry out the plan to take Joash out of the temple and proclaim him the king of Judah, which they did at the young age of 7 years old. Thirdly, Jehoiada assassinates Athaliah. When Athaliah heard the commotion, she tore her clothes and accused the people of treason. So Jehoiada had her taken, and anyone who followed her, and put her and them to death. Fourthly, Jehoiada destroys the house of Baal. Jehoiada had the king and the people make a covenant with God to be his people, and then he sent men throughout the land to destroy the house of Baal, break his altars and images, and kill Matan, the high priest of Baal, in front of the altars. After this, he had the guards march Joash to the king's house and sat him on the throne of the kings of Judah, which caused the people to rejoice. Letter I. Joash's reign as king of Judah ends. Number 1. Joash is mentored by Jehoiada. Joash began his reign during the 7th year of Jehu's reign in Israel, and he reigned for 40 years, doing right in the eyes of the Lord, because he was mentored by Jehoiada the priest. But he did not remove the high places, so the people still made offerings and sacrifices to the false gods. Secondly, Joash repairs the temple. Joash told the priests to start devoting the money donated to them to repair the temple. But he had to rebuke them and demand them to do it again years later, which they finally did. Thirdly, Joash pays a ransom to Hazael, king of Syria. When the temple was finally repaired, Hazael came against Judah and was going to attack Jerusalem, but Joash paid him from the sacred gifts given to his forefathers and from the temple itself. This caused Hazael to go away. Fourthly, Joash has Zechariah the priest stoned. Jehoiada died at the age of 120 years old and was buried in the city of David with the kings on account of all the good he had done in Judah toward the Lord and the temple. Unfortunately, after Jehoiada died, the king began listening to the princes in Judah and abandoned the temple to serve idols. This caused the Spirit of the Lord to come upon Zechariah, the son of Jehoiada, and he rebuked Joash for his idolatry. Instead of hearkening to Zechariah, Joash conspired to have him stoned in the court of the temple, and while he laid there dying, he prayed that the Lord would avenge him. Fifthly, Joash is assassinated by his servants. At the end of that year, the Syrians came against Joash and destroyed all the princes of Judah, sent the spoils back to their king, and left Joash severely wounded. Seeing this, Joash's servants conspired against him because of the blood of Zechariah the son of Jehoiada, and they killed him while he was in bed. They then buried him in the city of David, but not in the tomb of the kings. And sixthly, Amaziah becomes king of Judah. Amaziah was the son of Joash, the king of Judah. Letter J. Elisha dies. Number 1. Jehoahaz reigns as king of Israel. Jehoahaz was the son of Jehu, who began to reign during the 23rd year of Joash, king of Judah, and he reigned for 17 years. But he did evil in the sight of the Lord, so the Lord allowed Hazael, king of Syria, and his son, ironically named Ben-Hadad, to continually beat Israel in battle. Thankfully, Jehoahaz besought the Lord, so the Lord gave Israel a savior to deliver them from Syria's oppression. But, despite this, they still did not depart from the sins of Jeroboam. Secondly, Joash becomes king of Israel. Joash was the son of Jehoahaz, who began his reign during the 37th year of Joash, king of Judah, and he reigned for 16 years. But he also did evil in the sight of the Lord and followed the sins of Jeroboam. Thirdly, Joash angers Elisha. When Elisha got sick and was about to die, Joash, king of Israel, came to see him and wept for his life. So Elisha told him to shoot an arrow of deliverance out of the east window in the direction of Syria, then to strike it into the ground as a symbol of Israel's victory over Syria. When Joash only struck the ground 3 times, it caused Elisha to be angry because he said if he had struck the ground 5 to 6 times, then Israel would have made an end to Syria. But now they will only strike Syria down 3 times. Number 4, Elisha's bones resurrect a dead man. After Elisha died, in the spring of that same year, a man was being buried. But to evade a marauding band, he was thrown into the grave of Elisha. And as soon as he touched Elisha's bones, the man was revived and stood on his feet. Fifthly, Ben-Hadad becomes king of Syria. Hazael oppressed Israel his entire reign, and when he died, his son Ben-Hadad became king in his place. This led to Joash, king of Israel, to take back the cities Hazael had taken from his father. Roman numeral 5. Various kings reign in Israel and Judah. Letter A. Amaziah reigns over Judah. Number 1. Amaziah executes his father's murderers. Amaziah was 25 when he began to reign, and he reigned for 29 years. He did that which was right in the eyes of the Lord, but not with his whole heart, since he left the high places for idol worship. When he firmly took the throne, he had the servants who murdered his father Joash executed. But he did not kill their children, since the law of Moses forbade it. Secondly, Amaziah obeys a man of God. Amaziah was going to go to war against Seir, the Edomites, with 300,000 men of Judah and 100,000 hired men of Israel. But a man of God told him not to go out into battle with the men of Israel, since he should just trust in the Lord alone to win the battle. Amaziah was worried about the money that he had given to the men of Israel, but the man of God said that the Lord would repay him that money. So he sent him away and won the battle. However, the men of Israel left angrily, and they raided the cities of Judah on their way back to Israel, killing 3,000 people and taking much spoil. Thirdly, Amaziah worships the gods of Seir, Edom. When Amaziah came back from winning the battle, he brought their gods with him and began worshiping them. Therefore, the Lord sent a prophet to point out that he was worshiping gods that could not deliver their people from Judah. And while the prophet was speaking, Amaziah told him to stop talking, and the prophet then said that he would be destroyed because he would not listen to his counsel. Fourthly, Amaziah is captured by Joash, king of Israel. Amaziah challenged Joash to a battle, but Joash compared him to a twig, saying that he was just being boastful because he defeated Edom. He then fought against Judah and won so handedly because the Lord was behind it as punishment for Amaziah's idolatry that he ended up capturing Amaziah, taking him to Jerusalem, destroying a part of the wall of Jerusalem, and taking all the silver and gold in the temple and the king's house. And number 5, Amaziah is assassinated. We find out from the moment Amaziah turned from the Lord that there was a conspiracy against him that made him flee to Lachish. However, the people found him there and put him to death and buried him in the city of David with his fathers. Then letter B. Jeroboam II reigns in Israel. After Joash, king of Israel, died, his son Jeroboam reigned in his stead. Jeroboam II ended up reigning for 42 years, but he did evil in the sight of the Lord and sinned in the sins of Jeroboam. He ended up restoring the borders of Israel as Jonah, the son of Amittai, yes, that Jonah, had prophesied because the Lord had pity on his people. Letter C. Uzziah, also known as Azariah, reigns as king of Judah. Number 1. Uzziah builds a powerful military. Uzziah began his reign at 16 years old. He reigned for 52 years and did right in the eyes of the Lord, but he still did not remove the high places. Uzziah is also given credit for strengthening his military to the point that its fame spread abroad and he conquered a lot of the Philistine territory. However, number 2, Uzziah becomes prideful. His militaristic strength went to his head, and he thought it was okay for him to go into the temple and burn incense on the altar of incense. But Azariah and 80 priests confronted him with his disobedience, and he got angry with them. So the Lord struck him with leprosy, and he had to remain in a separate house the rest of his life. When Uzziah died, they even buried him in a separate place since he was a leper. Thirdly, Jotham becomes king of Judah. When Uzziah became leprous, his son Jotham managed the king's household, governing the people until Uzziah died. Then he became the official king of Judah during the second reign of Pekah, king of Israel, and did right in the eyes of the Lord, but he still did not remove the high places. Jotham was 25 when he began to reign, and he reigned for 16 years. Next, letter D. Zechariah, then Shallum, then Menahem, then Pekahiah, then Pekah reign in Israel. Number 1. Zechariah is assassinated by Shallum. Zechariah was the son of Jeroboam II and reigned sinfully like Jeroboam I during the 38th year of Uzziah, king of Judah. He only reigned for 6 months because Shallum conspired against him and killed him, taking his place on the throne. Secondly, Shallum is assassinated by Menahem. Shallum reigned during the 39th year of Uzziah, king of Judah, and only reigned for 1 month because Menahem killed him and took his place as king. Menahem was so wicked that when he was victorious during one particular battle, he had all the unborn babies ripped out of their mothers. Thirdly, Menahem pays a ransom to Pul, the king of Assyria. Menahem reigned during the 39th year of Uzziah, king of Judah, and reigned for 10 years. But he ended up having to pay off Pul, the king of Assyria, when they came to war against him. Fourthly, Pekahiah is assassinated by Pekah. Pekahiah was a son of Menahem who reigned during the 49th year of Uzziah, and he only reigned for 2 years because his captain Pekah conspired against him with 50 men and killed him, taking his place as king. And fifthly, Pekah is assassinated by Hoshea. Pekah began his reign during the 52nd year of Uzziah, the king of Judah, and reigned for 20 years, doing evil in the sight of the Lord as Jeroboam had done. During his reign, Tiglath-Pileser, king of Assyria, captured many cities and the land of Naphtali and carried many of the people into captivity in Assyria. After this, Hoshea conspired against Pekah and killed him, taking his place as the last king of Israel during the 20th year of Jotham, son of Uzziah, king of Judah. Letter E. Ahaz reigns in Judah. Number 1. Ahaz sacrifices his own son. Ahaz reigned in Judah during the 16th year of Pekah, king of Israel, and he reigned for 16 years as an evil king like the kings of Israel. He was so evil that he even sacrificed his own son as an offering to his false gods. Secondly, Pekah, king of Israel, and Rezin, king of Syria, attacked Judah. In response to Ahaz's idolatry, the Lord sent Rezin, king of Syria, and Pekah, king of Israel, to war against Judah. However, they could not conquer him, but they did take some of the cities in the nation of Judah. Thirdly, Obed rebukes the soldiers of Israel. Obed was a prophet in Israel who confronted the soldiers of Israel since they had taken captive men, women, and children from Judah and intended to make them their slaves. Obed rebuked them for breaking the law of Moses and commanded that they send them all back to Judah because the wrath of God was upon them. Interestingly, the chiefs actually listened to Obed by giving all their captives food, water, and transportation back to Jericho, and then they themselves returned to Samaria. Fourthly, Ahaz seeks help from Tiglath-Pileser, king of Assyria. On account of Israel and Syria warring against him, Ahaz sent messengers to Tiglath-Pileser, the king of Assyria, asking for help against Syria and Israel by paying him in silver and gold from the temple. The king of Assyria listened to Ahaz and fought against Syria to the point that he took over Damascus and killed Rezin, king of Syria. Fifthly, Ahaz has his own altar built. When Ahaz went to meet Tiglath-Pileser in the newly captured Damascus, he admired the altar there so much that he sent back to the temple to have Uriah the priest make a duplicate, which he did, and then had it completed by the time Ahaz returned home to Jerusalem. Ahaz then had parts of the holy artifacts in the temple taken apart to be used for new instruments of worship for his false gods. Number 6. Assyria attacks Judah. Sometime later, after the Edomites and Philistines weakened Judah with their attacks, Tiglath-Pileser came against Ahaz and attacked him instead of helping him. This caused Ahaz to pay him ransom or a tribute out of the temple and out of the house of the king and princes. And number 7, Ahaz dies. After much idolatry and temple destruction, Ahaz died because he provoked the Lord's anger, and his son Hezekiah reigned in his stead. Roman numeral 6. Israel falls to Assyria. Letter A. Hoshea reigns over Israel. Hoshea began his reign during the 12th year of Ahaz, king of Judah, and he reigned for 9 years. But he did evil in the sight of God as the kings before him. Letter B. Hoshea pays ransom to Shalmaneser, king of Assyria. Shalmaneser came against Hoshea, so he became his servant and paid him tribute. However, when Hoshea stopped paying Shalmaneser the tribute and then tried to get the king of Egypt to help him, Shalmaneser invaded Israel and besieged Samaria for 3 years. Letter C. Assyria captures Samaria because of their idolatry. During the ninth and final year of Hoshea's reign, the king of Assyria captured Samaria and took all the Israelites to Assyria and placed them in his cities. This chapter explains that there were four main reasons for the fall of Israel. First, the people sinned against the Lord with their idolatry. Second, they failed to keep his laws and commandments. Third, they sacrificed their own children as offerings. And fourth, they committed other various evils. Letter D. Assyria resettles Israel. After the king of Assyria took the Israelites out of their land, he moved people from other countries he conquered, including Babylon, and placed them in the cities of Israel. Interestingly, because there was still idolatry going on in the Lord's land, the Lord sent lions to kill some of them. They ended up trying to turn to the God of that land by even ordaining a priest for it, but they eventually went back to idolatry and ended up both fearing the Lord and serving idols. In Roman numeral 7, the last king's reign in Judah. Letter A. Hezekiah reigns in Judah. Number 1. Hezekiah restores the temple. Hezekiah began his reign during the fourth year of Hoshea, king of Israel, when he was 25 years old, and he reigned for 29 years doing right in the eyes of the Lord, to the point that he even removed the high places. During his first year as king, he rebuked the Levites, then demanded that they cleanse themselves and restore the temple. Secondly, Hezekiah restores temple worship. After the temple was restored, he had the officials of the city come to make sacrifices to the Lord, and then commanded that the entire assembly continue the sacrifices per the law of Moses. Thirdly, Hezekiah restores the Passover. After restoring worship in the temple, Hezekiah sent letters throughout all Israel and Judah saying that they should return to the Lord, unlike their fathers, and come to Jerusalem to observe the 7-day feast of unleavened bread, also known as the Feast of Passover. So many people came from Israel and Judah that they decided to keep the feast for another 7 days, and the king provided the livestock for sacrifice. Therefore, the Lord heard the prayers of Hezekiah and the people, and he healed them. Fourthly, the people destroy the places of idolatry. After the 14-day Passover observance, the people left from there and went around the cities of Judah, destroying their places of idolatry until they were all destroyed. Number 5, Hezekiah restores the priestly divisions and the tithe. Hezekiah had them take a roll out of all the Levites and the sons of Aaron and divide them amongst their specific duties. And then he had the people start bringing in their tithes once again. Number 6, Sennacherib, king of Assyria, attacks Judah. After Sennacherib took over Israel during Hezekiah's fourth year of his reign, 10 years later, he came back and set his sights on Judah to invade them as well. When the king of Assyria got to Jerusalem, Hezekiah asked what it would take for him to withdraw. Sennacherib's reply was that he required that Hezekiah pay him in silver and gold. Hezekiah then had silver and gold taken from the temple doors and doorposts and given to Sennacherib. Number 7, Sennacherib sends the Tartan, the Rapsaris, and the Rabshakeh to frighten Judah. The Tartan was the commander in chief or the prime minister. The Rapsaris was the chief eunuch, and the Rabshakeh was the chief of the princes. They were sent with a great army to Lachish, so Hezekiah sent Eliakim, the son of the priest Hilkiah, Shebna, the secretary, and Joah, the son of Asaph, the recorder, to speak with the three Assyrians. When they began speaking, they said that neither Egypt nor the Lord could deliver them from the Assyrian army. Since the three Assyrian men were speaking Hebrew, the three Jewish leaders asked them not to speak in Hebrew, but to speak in Aramaic out of fear for the people hearing and knowing what was being said. But they just began speaking even louder to the people, trying to frighten them. Number 8, Hezekiah seeks counsel from Isaiah. Hezekiah sent Eliakim and Shebna to tell Isaiah all that was going on in Lachish, and then to ask for his prayer for the people. Isaiah told them to tell Hezekiah not to be afraid, because the Lord would cause Sennacherib to return to his land and be killed. Number 9, Hezekiah prays to the Lord. After Hezekiah received a letter from Sennacherib telling him not to trust in his God, he went into the temple, spread the letter out in front of the Lord, and prayed that the Lord would hear and deliver him from the king of Assyria. In response to this prayer, the Lord had Isaiah send word to Hezekiah, letting him know that the Lord would defend the city for David's sake. Number 10, the angel of the Lord delivers Judah. That night, the angel of the Lord killed 185,000 soldiers in the camp of the Assyrians, and then Sennacherib fled to Nineveh, which was the capital of Assyria, and while he was worshiping his false god, two of his sons came in and killed him and then fled from the country. Number 11, Hezekiah almost dies. Hezekiah got really sick, so the Lord sent Isaiah to tell him to get his house in order because he was going to die. But while Isaiah was leaving, Hezekiah began praying and weeping, asking for healing since he had done so much for the Lord. The Lord then sent Isaiah back to Hezekiah to let him know that he would get 15 more years of life, and as a sign, the sun would go back either 10 degrees forward or backwards. Hezekiah chose to go 10 degrees backwards since he said it would be more difficult. And number 12, Hezekiah shows Babylon all his treasures. When Merodach Baladan, the king of Babylon, heard that Hezekiah was sick, he sent envoys with letters and presents to Hezekiah. When they arrived, Hezekiah showed them all the treasures he had: the silver, the gold, the spices, the oil, the armory, everything. So Isaiah confronted him and told him that this foolishness would cause all the treasures of Judah to be taken by Babylon, and his own sons would become eunuchs in the king of Babylon's house. Hezekiah then dared to say that it was okay because none of it would happen during his lifetime. Letter B, Manasseh reigns in Judah. Number 1, Manasseh does evil in the sight of God. When Hezekiah died and was buried with the kings in the city of David, his son Manasseh began to reign at 12 years old, and he reigned for 55 years. Still, he rebuilt the high places, built altars for idol worship in Judah and in the temple itself, and he even sacrificed his own son to his false god. On account of this, the Lord sent the prophets to let him know that disaster was coming upon Jerusalem and Judah. Number 2, Manasseh serves the Lord. Since Manasseh and the people would not listen to the Lord's warnings, the Lord allowed Assyria to capture Manasseh and take him bound with hooks to Babylon, where he finally called out to the Lord, and the Lord delivered him. When Manasseh returned to Jerusalem, he had all the places of idolatry destroyed and the altar of the Lord in the temple restored with its sacrifices, but he still left the high places, so idolatry in Judah continued. Letter C. Amon reigns in Judah for 2 years. When Manasseh died, they buried him in his house, and his son Amon reigned in his place for 2 years. But he did evil in the sight of the Lord like his father Manasseh by serving idols. His servants ended up conspiring against him and killing him. Then the people of the land killed all those servants and placed Josiah, his son, as the king of Judah instead. Letter D. Josiah reigns in Judah. Number 1. Josiah does right in the eyes of the Lord. Josiah was 8 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned for 31 years. He did right in the eyes of the Lord, even to the point that when he was 16 or 8 years into his reign, he had the high places removed and burned the bones of the idolatrous priests on their altars. Secondly, Josiah repairs the temple. During the 18th year of his reign, when he was 26 years old, Josiah had officials go to the temple and tell Hilkiah the high priest to take money from the collection and use it to pay the builders to repair the temple. Thirdly, Hilkiah finds the law of Moses. During the temple repairs, the high priest found the book of the law, so he gave it to the official to deliver to Josiah. When Shaphan the secretary read it to the king, Josiah tore his clothes and commanded Hilkiah to inquire of the Lord for him, because God's wrath was on them for not obeying the words of the book. Fourthly, Huldah foretells of the coming judgment. Hilkiah and the official went to Huldah the prophetess for direction from the Lord, and she informed them that the Lord would bring a disaster upon Judah because of their idolatry. But since Josiah was penitent and humbled himself, then he would go to the grave in peace and not see the disaster that the Lord would bring upon Judah. Fifthly, Josiah and the people make a covenant with the Lord. Josiah had all the elders of Judah, the inhabitants of Jerusalem, and all the priests and Levites assemble so he could read the book of the covenant to them, and then he promised the Lord to walk after him and keep all of his commandments. The people joined him in that covenant. The people then left from the assembly and went throughout all of Judah, destroying any places of idol worship and anything connected to it. Interestingly, he found a monument that he was going to destroy, but the people told him it was the tomb of the man of God who prophesied against Jeroboam and said that these things would happen. So he left it alone. All the days of Josiah, the people did not turn from following the Lord. Number 6, Josiah restores the Passover. During the 18th year of Josiah's reign, when he was 26 years old, he had the Passover observance reestablished. He donated his own livestock for its observance for the people, and the statement is made here that no king before him nor after him turned to the Lord with his heart, soul, and might according to the Torah, like Josiah. Unfortunately, the Lord's wrath still remained on Judah because of all the provocations Messiah had done by shedding innocent blood, which may be either a reference to killing the innocent or killing the prophets. And finally, number 7, Josiah dies in battle. Necho, king of Egypt, came against Assyria for war. So Josiah went out to meet him. But Necho sent a convoy to tell him that the Lord had sent him to destroy Assyria, and if he got in the way, then he would be opposing the Lord and find destruction himself. Nevertheless, Josiah disguised himself and went to battle against Necho and ended up being shot by an archer and dying from it. All Judah lamented for Josiah, and even Jeremiah the prophet uttered a lament for him, and the men and women sing of their laments for him to that day. That brings us to the end of Lecture 11 for Old Testament historical books.